All right, hello AP seminar. So today we're going to talk about what is an argument. So a key component of AP seminar and all the components and things that you're going to do is developing an argument and a fact-based argument, or an evidence-based argument rather. And so we're going to talk a little bit about the elements of what goes into that argument so that we can make sure we're doing things properly as opposed to doing things emotionally, I should say. So I'm going to quickly share my PowerPoint here with you all and walk you all through this. I will also post this PowerPoint for you in Schoology so that you can access it as well. All right, it's loading. Okay, so we're talking about arguments. That's the key for today's discussion. So number one, what is an argument? You can read that yourself. I'm not going to read it to you, but what the key part of AP Seminar's argument is it's not emotion-based, it's fact-based. And there are key elements that you will use to make sure that you are building a good argument as opposed to an emotion-based argument. I think that Desmond Tutu quote actually is a really great example of what an actual argument should be. Oftentimes we see people shouting at each other. And in today's modern society, that seems to be the leading way of arguing. But that's not how we argue in AP Seminar. We argue with facts and evidence-based, and we use the truths that come from those evidences to persuade an audience and to prove our points. And if the evidence isn't there, then we don't have a leg to stand on, and we can't argue that point any longer. So again, I like that quote. Don't raise your voice, improve your argument, because you're not arguing if you're just shouting. So one of the biggest things that we need for an argument, first you start with a claim, but sometimes you start with your reasons instead of your claim. And I'll explain that in just a second. But those the two key parts of the argument is that claim. And right, you should be used to this from your English courses with your thesis statements, where you start with a thesis, which is your overall claim, and then you use your reasons in your supporting paragraphs and things like that. It's very similar to that. But making sure that all those reasons are connected together. And so I stated that sometimes your reasons come before your claim, because if the evidence is pushing you in one direction, it's futile to go in the opposite direction. Where the evidence pushes you is where you will go. And sometimes that requires you to change your argument and change your perspective. And so we need to be willing to do that. But also part of that is acknowledging both sides. And that's a key part of AP Seminar for the components that you will complete. You will have to express the limitations or implications of any solutions that you give. And that just means recognizing that nothing is perfect and that nothing is 100%. And sometimes you have to acknowledge that. And oftentimes to build a better argument, you want to make sure that you're acknowledging that. And we will dive deeper into counterclaims and things like that in the future. But just know that we want to make sure we're acknowledging all sides to show how effective we've looked at the information and established the argument that we made. The way that we structure our argument and how you build your essays and papers in this course is through something called line of reason, or LOR, as you'll see it abbreviated in some of these different activities that we'll do. So line of reason is just simply how you organize your argument, how you put things in order. So whether you're grouping things together that are like-minded, whether you're building a map that leads to a specific destination, whatever that is, it's just the organization that you use, and it should make sense. So the line of reason is important because we want to make sure that our reader can follow along, and at the end of it, they follow along so well that they now agree with what we're trying to sway them to agree to. So building a good line of reason is essential, and you'll do that by using some strategies. We call them signpost words, but you've probably heard them as transition words. But those help us to build that pathway so your reader knows exactly where they're going, and it's not a surprise, because an argument should never be a surprise. An argument should be evidence-based, fact-based, and it should build upon itself. The key part of all of this is just having that evidence and making sure it's relevant, credible, and good evidence. So one of the biggest things and what you learned in the quest, hopefully, is that understanding multiple perspectives is a huge part of AP Seminar and any AP capstone and any argument altogether, because you want to see all sides of a discussion before you make a conclusion. You want to see from the perspective of the person affected as well as the person affecting. Oftentimes, if someone gets in a fight, you'll often hear this statement that there's three sides, right? There's one side, the other side, and then the truth. Well, it's the same with any argument, really. There are multiple sides and multiple ways of looking at a situation. And when you understand all of those sides, you can make a better conclusion. So having the proper evidence is definitely necessary, and it's one of the biggest things you'll get graded on with those components, is making sure your evidence is supported and credible and that it's used in an appropriate way. But we'll dive deeper into multiple perspectives and credibility too in the future. But just know that evidence is a key component. And I often tell my students in a loving way, as much as possible, that I don't care what you think. I do care about what the evidence is showing. So if you give me a statement that says, well, I think this, I'm likely to say, well, that's great, but where's the evidence to support that? So as long as you have evidence to support your claims, then people will more than likely agree with you because your evidence is there. Of course, there are flaws when we have logical fallacies and things, but evidence is the key component there. So this is just a quick illustration of how you will build your claims with your main ideas and things. So you'll have your main claim here on the top, and then your supporting claims, all of which lead to that one overall claim, and the evidence supporting each of those claims. What we'll also use, and I'm going to stop sharing here and share another screen. Can I do that quickly? Yes, stop sharing. And I'm now going to share over here. We also use a visual called the tree of reason. Let me show you what that looks like. So this is the tree of reason, and it's just a great visual to show your claim and how you're building upon things. So you can see each part of the tree has a specific area in it. So let me zoom in. Can I zoom in? Yeah. So the trunk of the tree is your claim, and that's where you'll state what you're arguing for, whatever you're arguing for. Each branch becomes a reason that supports that overall claim, and notice they're all connected together. So the trunk is supporting the branches are part of the trunk, and then each branch has its own set of leaves that are the evidence that support its reasons. There's other components of the tree as well. Like I said, counterclaims are key to making sure you've seen the full argument, so you put those in there in any way you want, but little birds can help. You also want to make sure you are stating your research questions. So all the things that we'll do in AP Seminar, we'll have a question associated with it. We're not just going to start making claims. We're going to ask a question first and then make a claim based on that question. So your question would go here in the little thought bubble that the person has. And then context is key too, because nothing we argue will be something that's arbitrary or that people don't care about. We're going to want to make sure that it's a topic that matters and that still matters. So we're not going to argue why we should change from horse and buggy carriages to gasoline vehicles, because that doesn't matter anymore. We've already made that transition. We're more than likely not going back to that. And so that's not a topic that we would care about in society. We'll choose a context that we do care about in society. And then in the sun over here, you would draw any conclusions based on all the evidence that you have made. So to see it in action, these are a couple of examples of different trees of reasoning. So you can see this student was asking about standardized tests and improving education in America. Their claim is that no, it's hard to read because it's a little bit small, but providing high schoolers with standardized tests, I believe, suppresses creativity. I think that was where they're going with this. It's a little hard to read again, but then they support each branch supports that overall claim, and then they put quotes from sources that they found in the leaves that support each reason. And then at the end, they made a conclusion, which again is hard to find or hard to see just because of the writing in it. It was hand drawn, but they also give context as to why standardized testing matters. They talked about it more. It's yes, important to students, but also important to adults, because that's how we get the school's reputation, and then it provides better future for the students and the parents of the students, things like that. So they really dove into what the context was. There are a couple more examples here, which I'll also post for you. You can see sometimes the tree gets its own creative flair, and you're welcome to be creative with it as long as you have the components. So this person put a horse instead of a person. Down here, they got much more creative and they drew as artistic as they could be. They don't have to be that fancy. And then you can even make the tree in regards to what you're looking at. So if you're looking at something ocean-like, you can put some ocean animals there. And then further below, you'll see someone was talking more about like nuclear energy, and they decided to build a little nuclear cloud. So again, you have options there. It's just a visual to help see everything. So the key elements is making sure that you have a claim. Stopping my share now. There we go. Is making sure you have a claim, and that claim is supported with reasons, and those reasons have evidence. Okay, so you'll see your activities now in Schoology, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.